Dynasty rookie mock draft, our third one of the year. If you like Dynasty content, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. At the time of recording this video, we are 10 subscribers away from 900. Help us get there, especially if you like Dynasty content. And join our Discord. Link is in the description. It's a temporary link. I don't know how long it lasts, so keep that in mind. But join our Discord. We'll, we have a growing community there. We're going to start putting together some Dynasty leagues together. So make sure to join the Discord. It is free. Like I said, this is our third Dynasty rookie mock draft. Now, this one's different from the other ones. The other two that we did, if you haven't checked them out, you can go ahead and check them out. We used mock drafts. We used 3-round mock drafts to kind of, to use for landing spots for these prospects. This one, we're not using a mock draft, and a couple reasons why. It is the Saturday, actually currently the Ravens-Browns game of Week 18 is going on. So the non-playoff team draft order will be set by the end of the day tomorrow. So I kind of want to wait until that gets set to start using more mock drafts. And I think it's important to know some of these prospects, some of the big prospects that people are high on, especially for those of you that do these drafts. Some of you do rookie drafts before the actual NFL draft. So this one's a little bit for you as well. Now, this is a Dynasty Superflex 2-round rookie mock draft. And the 101 consensus across the board, despite it being Superflex, is Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, record-setting running back. Some people think he is, an elite talent, kind of a transcendent type of talent at the running back position. He obviously put up massive numbers. His bowl game wasn't as good, but I'm not too worried about that. He still looked good. It's just, Boise State went up against a tougher team. He's the consensus number one. If you want Ashton Jeanty, you have to have the 101. It's kind of like the Bijan year. Even though there's quarterbacks that are going to be taken potentially in the top 5 or number 1, number 2 overall, Ashton Jeanty is the number 1. A lot of people think that he's a first-round talent and that he doesn't fall past the Cowboys sitting there right now, I believe, at 13th overall. Not much else to say there. Ashton Jeanty is the 101 in this Dynasty rookie mock draft. Next up, we have Tet McMillan. I wouldn't be surprised if we look back on this rookie draft in 2-3 years and say, oh, yeah, Tet McMillan was the best player to come out of this draft for fantasy. We're talking about a receiver that potentially goes top 5, almost assuredly goes top 10. He is the number 1 receiver in this draft class, and I don't think many people will argue against that. Now, he's a little bit not different, but he's a little bit more of the old school wide receivers, 6'5", the big, strong, win that way type of receivers. So when you're evaluating these type of guys, you have to kind of evaluate them a little bit differently. You got to look for a certain skill set that you see is going to translate to the NFL. I think it will with Tet McMillan. I do think he's the number 1 receiver here. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if we look back and say, all right, he was the best just overall fantasy, not just wide receiver, just overall fantasy player from this rookie draft. It wouldn't surprise me at all. At the 103, I'm going Mario Hampton. This is a change from what I've done in my other mock drafts where I was basically making the case that, these quarterbacks, if they go 1, 2 overall, or they both go in the top 5 in a super flex league, we have to potentially take them, 3rd or 4th overall in the top 5 at Dynasty rookie draft. And the feedback I got is that's not necessarily the case. And I kind of understand it. I get it. I do think positional value, if one of those quarterbacks hit, is going to be more valuable than anyone else, just like CJ Stroud, in my opinion. I know some people disagree. In my opinion, CJ Stroud is still the most valuable piece from that 2023 Dynasty rookie draft, even though Bijan had a really good year this year. That being said, these quarterbacks are not special in terms of fantasy difference makers. That's different than good NFL quarterbacks. But Mario Hampton is my 103 here. He is the consensus number 2 running back, would be the top running back in a lot of other draft classes. He can kind of do it all. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he can pass catch. Just had really, really good numbers at North Carolina the last 2 years, over 2,000 total yards and 17 touchdowns Mario Hampton had for North Carolina in 2024. And then at the 104, I have Caleb Johnson, the consensus running back 3. These are like the top 3 running backs here. They're kind of in a tier of their own. Ashton Genty's in a tier of his own, and then maybe Caleb Johnson and Mario Hampton are in the next tier. And honestly, I could see Dynasty rookie drafts going this way, that the first 4 picks, even though it's super flex, not a quarterback is taken, even though we have quarterbacks being taken potentially number 1 and number 2 overall, which is different. And I'm not going to argue too much against it. One thing I think we don't put much value into, or we don't put much thought into when it comes to Dynasty as a whole. I think we're so focused on who we like, and that works for redraft. I like this guy. I'm going to draft this guy, right? I don't care what other people think. This is the guy I like. I think he's going to smash, and we draft those guys for 2024. Dynasty is not like that, because Dynasty involves trading. And just because you value someone one way doesn't mean someone else has to value players the other way. And so there's certain players that come into this league and they're already at a disadvantage dynasty-wise because of a negative perception around them. Caleb Williams is one of those examples. And I'm going to talk a lot about this, or a few times throughout this draft, of kind of like the psychology behind dynasty values and kind of outside factors that can influence some of these players. And the quarterbacks, to me, fall into that category. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I have Cam Ward at the 105, Shedeur Sanders at the 106. I think I slightly lean Cam Ward. I think Shedeur Sanders is the safer pick. I think Cam Ward has a little bit more upside, but definitely a more bust potential, in my opinion. I think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be a solid quarterback in the NFL. I'm not saying he doesn't have a ceiling to be better than that, but I do think he's going to be just a solid quarterback. Whereas I think Cam Ward has the little bit more upside to be like elite. Not saying I think he will. I just think the upside's slightly there. But what I mean by kind of the psychology behind dynasty value, think about Caleb Williams, and you put Caleb Williams and Bo Nix's pure numbers side by side, and they're basically identical. I think Bo Nix has more touchdowns, but they basically have about the same passing yards. I think Caleb has more rushing yards, which maybe not a lot of people realize. But, and I know they got them in different ways, right? I know Caleb potentially got those in a lot of garbage time and things like that. But that being said, you would never expect those two to be even close to each other, given the overall feeling of how their seasons went. Bo Nix was a huge success, and Caleb is this bust, right? And partly because of the record of the team as well. And we thought Caleb going into the Bears with Odunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen, all that. But also part of it had to do with, some people just didn't like Caleb Williams. They just didn't like him. They didn't like his interviews. They didn't like that he painted his nails, whatever. They just didn't like the guy, thought he was too cocky, and that, if a player doesn't perform, those outside factors influence the dynasty value a little bit. And so what I'm trying to get at with these quarterbacks is, what if Shedeur Sanders goes out there and just looks terrible in preseason, or terrible in week 1 or week 2? I don't think people really like Shedeur Sanders. There's a negative vibe around him a bit because of his dad, and maybe the way that he's portrayed in the media, or whatever, for whatever reason. I think there's a little bit more of a wanting to see him fail than the average guy. And so because there's this negative, we're being told this is not a great quarterback draft class. It's not like 2024. Because we're being told that, if these guys go out there and start to struggle in the beginning, their dynasty value is going to start to tank more so than what it would if it was just a random guy, or, a guy that had a positive outlook. So you got to keep that in mind when evaluating these quarterbacks a little bit. And also on the flip side, for running backs, it kind of works the opposite in that sense of running backs are going to be pushed up, because we've been ever since, the 2024 draft class happened, we've been told that this draft class for running backs is amazing. And it is. It's really, really good. But that's just going to boost up some running backs, whether they're good or not, just because we're told that this draft class is good. At the 107, I have Emeka Egbuka. This one's a little bit different. I've been taking Luther Burden as my wide receiver too, and he very well could be. Emeka Egbuka and Luther Burden, to me, are kind of in that same tier, in my opinion. Again, Emeka Egbuka is one of those players where you went back and told me, oh yeah, he was the best wide receiver from this draft class. I wouldn't be surprised. It's Ohio State wide receiver, so they have a little bit of a track record, which plays into dynasty value just a little bit. JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, these guys, Terry McLaurin, because he's an Ohio State wide receiver, whether it's justified or not, if he does well, it's going to be like, oh yeah, Ohio State receiver value is already a tick higher than maybe it should be compared to Luther Burden, who's from Missouri. I do think Luther Burden's a good receiver. But Emeka Egbuka, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the number one receiver from this draft class. So Emeka Egbuka, I believe, is going to go in the top 7 or 8 of Dynasty rookie drafts. Of course, depending on draft capital, but I do think he's probably a first-round wide receiver. I think it's hard to pass up that kind of talent that Emeka Egbuka has. Whether or not he's an elite number one receiver, the skill set is there for him to be 6'1", runs a 4.3 potentially. There's just too many tools there that teams are going to not ignore that. Luther Burden is my 108. I feel fairly confident that these 8 players that I just went through, Ashton Jeanty, Ted McMillan, Omario Hampton, the 2 quarterbacks in Sanders and Ward, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka, I feel fairly confident that these 8 players, I'd be very surprised if they weren't first-round picks in this upcoming Dynasty rookie draft. Are they going to be the top 8? Maybe someone sneaks in there, depending on format and whatever, and just other managers liking certain players. But I would be very surprised if these 8 players are not in at least the first round, potentially in the first 10 picks. So Emeka Egbuka is my 108 here in Dynasty rookie drafts. And again, I think that's a really good value. I think this draft class is a lot better just because maybe it's not as deep as maybe the other draft class, 2024, that is. I think it's still a very, very good draft class, and people are underrating it just a little bit. There is positional scarcity at the quarterback and wide receiver position, and it's a little bit deeper in the running back and tight end position, in my opinion. At the 109, I have Quinshon Judkins here. I have Quinshon Judkins, one of the running backs who we've been hearing his name over and over, at least if you've been paying attention to college football. His name has been in college football for the last couple of years. Kind of looked at as heading into the 2024 college season as one of the top 3 running backs in the nation. Played well. His pure raw numbers aren't quite there, but that's because he was sharing the backfield with another top running back. But still, you look at the elite talent. I think he's probably going to go day 2. I would be surprised, honestly, if he wasn't a second-round draft pick. I think he's that good. So Quinshon Judkins, I put here at the 109. Again, this draft class is just super deep at the running back position. At the 110, I have my first tight end here, and there's 2 tight ends to me that are kind of in the same tier, or maybe not, but they're both going to get, in my opinion, day 1, round 1 draft capital. There's a very good chance that both of them do. I think I lean Tyler Warren just a little bit more over Colston Loveland, who's the other tight end, which we will be getting to. I think I lean Tyler Warren just a little bit more. I just feel like his skill set is going to be more valued by an NFL team. And he's going to get him on the field a little bit more. He's big. He's strong. The guy was freaking 7th in Heisman voting as a tight end. His numbers, and he's still playing, by the way, in the college football playoffs, but his numbers are insane. He can kind of do it all for them, in my opinion. He can block. He can carry the ball. This guy had 98 catches, 1,158 yards, 24 carries with another 200 yards on the ground. The guy had over 1,350 total yards and 12 touchdowns. He could do it all. He can play whatever role you need him to, and I think teams are going to value that a little bit more than Colston Loveland, who maybe is slightly better as a pure receiving tight end. I really like Tyler Warren. Would I take him this high in non-tight end premium dynasty drafts? Probably not. But I can't ignore that people are going to see Tyler Warren and see that he drafted in the first round, and he's not going to escape, in my opinion, the first round of a dynasty rookie draft, whether it's tight end premium or not, just because you got to think about not just what you think, what other people believe as well. Travion Henderson, he was the other Ohio State running back I was talking about when I talked about Quinshon Judkins. I don't think he's officially declared. I think he will come out, but Travion Henderson, man, I wish he kind of came out last year because I think he would have been the number 1 back taken if he had come out last year. But Travion Henderson is amazing. Again, the raw numbers aren't quite there, only 925 yards rushing, but he was sharing the backfield. He did that on 126 carries. The guy averaged over 7 yards per attempt, which is the best in his career. I just think he's a special running back. And if he gets on the right team, like he's definitely going to be a first round pick, in my opinion. Him and Judkins, if they get on the right team with the right draft capital, especially knowing how much all this talk about this running back draft class is, like I think he gets drafted in the first round. And then to round out the first round, I have Jalen Milroe here, and I'm pounding the table for Milroe. I see on a lot of other content creators, and I'm not trying to say they're wrong or I'm right or whatever, because we just don't know. I see Milroe in a lot of dynasty rookie mock drafts kind of fall into like the mid-second round. All mock drafts that I see kind of have Milroe as a second round pick. That being said, it's easier to mock quarterbacks to teams. If you ever look at mock drafts, they're generally quarterback heavy just because it makes sense, right? This team needs a quarterback. I'm going to give him. And it doesn't always go out that way. I mean, Spencer Rattler was a good example, was kind of mocked as like a second, third round pick. It didn't go into the fifth round. Just because if teams don't really see that you have starting potential, they're not going to take you. I do think Milroe has starting potential. I think he has a lot of experience in college. I think he's a better passer. He's a better passer than guys like Anthony Richardson, maybe even Jalen Hurts coming out of college. He might be a better passer. And the reason why I have Milroe so high as a potential first round pick, assuming he goes in the second round, top of the second round to one of those quarterback needy teams, is because he's going to get a chance. He's kind of like Will Levis. Like Will Levis, we knew was going to get his chance. He got a year. We'll see if he gets anything more, Will Levis. Milroe is going to get a chance if he's taken in the second round. And the guy's a cheat code in fantasy quarterbacks. He can run. He ran for over 700 yards and 20 touchdowns in the NFL. He's a cheat code. And I don't think people realize, like, give me 2 years of a top 5 quarterback over 7 years of a wide receiver 24. Or even quarterback 15. Give me 2 years. I don't care. If you're Justin Fields, you play a whole season and you're an elite quarterback because in fantasy, because of your rushing ability, I'll take that over QB 17 for 7 straight years, because QB 17 doesn't push me over the top to win fantasy championships. Maybe it's necessary, but I'm not saying QB 17s are useless. But QB 17s don't win you championships. You need other players, QB 5, QB 1, whatever. You need those type of players to win you championships. Give me 2 years of that, and I'll value that over a guy who's QB 17 for 5 straight years. And that's why I like Milroe, because if he's drafted in the second round, he's going to get a chance, at least a year, probably a couple years of starting ability if he's on the right team. And that's going to be very, very valuable for fantasy. So I'm pounding the table for him. If he's a second-round pick at the quarterback position in Dynasty Superflex, I think he should be a first-round pick. You can even make the argument he could go a little bit higher than this. Into the second round, and I want to talk about Travis Hunter, because in my other mock drafts, I didn't include Travis Hunter because we just don't know what he's going to come out as. And there's a very good chance, guys, that despite what other people tell you, all the other people in the industry or whatever, there's a very good chance that even after Travis Hunter's drafted, we don't know what he's going to play and how he's going to play. We don't know if he's going to be a 50-50 two-way player, or he plays more as a cornerback and plays 10, 15 snaps. If he's a full-on wide receiver, he goes higher in this draft. If he's a cornerback with getting 10 to 15 snaps on offense, he goes much lower in dynasty rookie drafts. I think that is more likely, in my opinion, that he's a cornerback that gives you 10, 15 snaps on offense and plays special teams as well. But there's a very good chance that we won't know, even when we're doing our dynasty rookie drafts. And so the psychology behind this is I think someone would take a shot on Travis Hunter, even not knowing if he's going to be a full-time wide receiver. And think about this. Week 1 comes along, and whoever drafts Travis Hunter, he's out there on the first play with the week 1 with their quarterback. Travis Hunter's dynasty value skyrockets because of that. Because he's out there week 1 playing with the quarterback, and his dynasty value skyrockets. And I like taking players knowing I like stashing players, I like taking players in drafts, knowing they have a good chance that their dynasty value increases. So in that way, it's just like a stock. If someone tells you, hey, this stock, you could buy $5 of it, it's probably going to remain at $100 per share, right? Or buy 5 stocks of it. It's going to remain at 100 per share, guaranteed, with the potential to go down a little bit. Or this one, which would probably be, it's a little bit more volatile, but it can shoot up to there's a lot of people that are going to take the one that's volatile and that it can shoot up. I kind of play the same way in Dynasty. So I guarantee you, even if we don't know where he's going to play, that Travis Hunter does not get too far past the end of the first, the beginning of the second round. Into round 202 here, I got Elik Iomaner. I always say that weirdly. He's an interesting one here. He has an interesting skill set. Sounds like Liam Neeson, but he has an interesting. To me, he has kind of all the tools to be a number one guy. And so I generally lean these guys. There's some players where I look at them and I'm like, your ceiling's probably like a wide receiver 2 or 3 on this team. And I think there's a lot of those in this draft, guys. A lot of like your wide receiver 2 or 3. I don't think this draft class is that good. Has some good potential, but I don't think it's very deep. And I don't necessarily think it's super top heavy either. So Elik Iomaner, to me, has all the skill set to be an outside X receiver, even move into the slot if he needs to. He's 6'10", 210, runs in the low 4.4s. I just like all his physical tools, and I could see him being a bust. I could see him developing into a number one guy. So I'll take him here at the 202. I'll take a shot here. At the 203, I'm going to grab the other tight end, Colston Loveland. Maybe he should go a little bit higher. And in tight end premium leagues, he definitely does go a little bit higher, in my opinion. But Colston Loveland, if you're comparing just receiving ability, I think is the number one tight end here. And I do think he's going to get first-round draft capital as well. And if he gets on the right team, he could potentially go over Tyler Warren. Like if he goes to the Chargers and Warren goes to the Colts or something where we're not 100% sure about Anthony Richardson, then I could see Loveland going over Warren. It wouldn't shock me. But I like Warren a little bit more, but that has nothing to do with Loveland. That's just more about Warren. I think Loveland is a great receiving tight end. And I'm always going to devalue tight ends a little bit unless you're in a very heavy tight end premium league. And by heavy, I mean, I need at least double of what other players are getting. So if it's PPR, I need at least 2 points per reception for tight ends before I even start considering moving tight ends up because of a tight end premium league. At the 204, and maybe people are going to disagree with this, but this is another psychology, cult following type of player, a player that I guarantee you, he goes out there in preseason and just looks awesome in preseason, and he's running guys over like he was in college. His dynasty value skyrockets. Whether or not that means he's going to be a good running back in the NFL, I have no idea. But Cam Skattebo, and it is Skattebo. Another thing is people know his name. People know his name, and for that reason, there's a lot of dynasty managers out there that don't really pay attention to prospects until maybe right around when the draft comes along, their dynasty rookie draft comes along, especially when you get into the second round outside of the top 5, 6, 7, top maybe first round. Guys go with who they've heard of before, and they're going to say Cam Skattebo. I remember him when he was in that college football playoff game, and the dude looked like Taysom Hill reincarnated, right? Like just against Texas, one of the better well-known teams in the NFL. Guy had 30 carries for 143 yards, 8 catches for 99 yards. He threw a 42-yard touchdown pass. That being said, I don't necessarily dislike Skattebo. I don't know what his full-on role in the NFL is going to be. Can he be an every down back? I do like his receiving ability, and I think that's going to give him some intrigue and potential fantasy intrigue. So I don't mind taking him here, even if his name wasn't Cam Skattebo, and he didn't do this against. If he was just another generic player, like I don't mind taking him here. He's not going to test out well. His 40-yard time is going to suck. All that stuff's going to suck. But you put on the film, the guy's awesome, and he can't be tackled, and that usually translates to the NFL a lot of times. Is like this guy's ability to break tackles. So if he goes to the right team, and because of his receiving ability, I can justify him going here, and I don't mind it. But also, think about the psychology, guys. He has one big preseason game. His dynasty value skyrockets, and you could cash in on that right away, more so than other players that are going to go in this range. I guarantee you. At the 205, another guy with kind of a cult following here is Harold Fannin Jr. Go look at this guy's stats. They are ridiculous. He led the entire FBS Division I football in receptions and receiving yards as a tight end. He had 117 yards, 117 catches, over 1,550 yards, and 10 touchdowns. I think he made up and accounted for over 50% of Bowling Green's passing offense. There's the key, though. He played at Bowling Green, which generally it doesn't that doesn't bother me too much, guys playing at smaller schools. One thing that bothers me about Harold Fannin Jr. is his size. And is he a tweener? Is he a Chigakonkwo? Which, Chigakonkwo or Mike Gesicki, to me, those two guys are two of the more talented receiving tight ends just pure receiving tight ends in the NFL. Chigakonkwo and Gesicki are up there. The problem is they can't do all the things that teams expect a tight end to do, and they don't quite have the skill set to just be a pure receiver out there. Because, you need other things besides – they're basically big receivers, and big receivers are usually slower. They don't have the lateral agility to go out, consistently beat these guys. That's my issue with Harold Fannin Jr. Where's he going to fit in? But I think this guy's going to come out. He's going to run in the low 4.5s potentially. People are going to look at his stats and be like, holy crap, this guy was a beast. He's going to probably destroy at the combine. The problem is, where is he going to fit in? He's going to be very team dependent. If he goes to the right team, and guys, I talked about Scadaboo and how he needs one preseason game for his dynasty value to skyrocket. Harold Fannin Jr. just needs the right team to draft him for his fantasy value to skyrocket. You imagine if Harold Fannin Jr. Gets on the Chargers, drafted to the Chargers, or drafted to the Chiefs with Kelsey retiring. Holy crap, his fantasy value is going to skyrocket. He doesn't even need to play. So he has a cult following, and for good reason. The guy's fun. He's a fun watch. He's a really fun watch. I'm just a little bit worried about where he fits in. 6'4", 230, by the way. Most tight ends you want at least to be 250. So he's well under that. At the 206 here, I have Trey Harris. Trey Harris's production profile is off the freaking charts. I think his yards per route run is over 5 yards per route run. The guy put up 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns in 8 games this year. That's insane. That's an absolutely insane Trey Harris. And he's big and he's strong. And so a lot of people are going to fall in love with him. The question is, is he A.J. Brown or is he Jonathan Mingo? And the reason why I bring those two guys up is because he played at Ole Miss, where those two guys played. What is Trey Harris? Is he the A.J. Brown guy or is he the Jonathan Mingo? A lot of people are going to fall in love with Trey Harris, and I love receivers in this size, receivers in this range of like 6'3", 215 and built, run a 4.5. Like, I love those type of receivers. The production profile is there. He probably goes a little bit higher. He could go in the first round. I've seen him mocked in the first round a lot. It's just, there's some concerns there. It's not all bright and sunshines and rainbows with him. There's some concerns about Trey Harris in particular, like his ability to separate is a little bit concerning. And if you can't separate in college, good chance you can't separate in the NFL as well. But that doesn't mean you can't succeed. It just, you got to look for different things. So Trey Harris here I have at the 206. At the 207, Ollie Gordon. A lot of people are down on Ollie Gordon, but he's another guy where the name value is there. People that pay attention to college football and prospects or play DevV and stuff like that, they know Ollie Gordon because Ollie Gordon coming into 2024 was Ashton Genty. He was the clear-cut number one running back in the entire college football. He had a massive 2023 sophomore season. Ollie Gordon did 1,732 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, 39 catches, 330 yards. He had over 2,000 total yards and 22 touchdowns. The guy was incredible, Ollie Gordon. He was incredible. So that being said, if again, he's just another guy that like the skill set's there. To me, there are some things that he lacks, and there's a reason why he was way less efficient this year. 880 rushing yards, averaged 4.6 yards per attempt, which was down about a yard and a half from 2023. Averaged about over 2 yards less per reception, and only had 1,000 total yards and 14 touchdowns. Part of that is the team he was on. Oklahoma State just not very good this year, just to be quite frank. But to me, the thing that made him the number one clear-cut guy and like to have that massive season at Oklahoma State, that skill set's still there. So if he goes to the right team, even if it's in the third round, I guarantee you Ollie Gordon is going to have a chance to shoot up draft boards. Guarantee it. At the 208 here, Xavier Restrepo from Miami. He's one of these guys when I compare him to like, someone like Eli Iomanner. It's like I see the potential. I think there's less bust potential with Restrepo, but maybe there's less of a ceiling here. He's an interesting one. Is he more of just like a slot guy, chain mover type of player? Potentially. I think he's a little bit better than that. I'm not trying to like disrespect the guy, but I think he does fit in at the slot. His ceiling is probably a little bit capped, but he probably gives you solid production, week in and week out in the NFL once he gets going. At the 209, Dylan Sampson. He's a guy that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. I'm higher on Dylan Sampson. I'm going to be making a list of kind of some prospects, rookie prospects that I'm a little bit higher on than other people, maybe that you'll find late in the second or third round of your Dynasty rookie drafts. Dylan Sampson's one of them. Super, super productive. Last year at Tennessee, had over 1,600 total yards with 22 touchdowns. He caught 20 passes. I like his profile. And again, the thing about these running backs is once you get outside of, to me, probably Travion Henderson, once you get outside of, the top guys in J&T Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson, once you get outside of those guys, like running backs 6 through like, man, it might go as deep as like 15 guys. Definitely 6 through 12, 6 to potentially 15. It's just like stud. I can see all these guys being worked. Like I think this draft class is going to be like 2017, and it's going to kind of replenish the running back pool. We haven't had a true, in my opinion, draft class that has like replenished the running back. We had a couple running backs, Bijan, Gibbs, and guys like that, but we need a true 2017 draft class. I think this is it. And to be completely honest, I'm talking about all these guys, Restrepo and guys like that, and maybe I'm going to talk about 2 more receivers at the end of this draft. To be honest, you're probably better off just taking a bunch of running backs here. Like, just take the next running back on your rankings type of thing, because they're just so much better than the receivers, in my opinion. Dylan Sampson's one of those, in my opinion. People are much lower on him. I'm looking at some other draft sites, and maybe they have him a little bit lower, but I really like Dylan Sampson a lot, and he's fast too. He's fast and he's big. He's not super big. I shouldn't say he's big. He's not like he's not small though. He's like 200, maybe 205. At the 210 here, I have Jaden Higgins, a receiver that I like. Definitely the receiver, Iowa State receiver I like more. There's 2 of them, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins here. Jalen Noel and Higgins here. I like Higgins a little bit more personally. And he also has that skill set that I could see developing into like a number 1 type of receiver. Maybe not like an elite guy, but just like, he could be a very good receiver for someone. I think he's just, he kind of has all the tools to get there. There's 2 more receivers I want to talk about here. Again, once we get to this point, it's really hard to know where these guys are going to go because this is all going to change. We're sitting here on January 4th. The combine hasn't happened and all that stuff. So Jalen Royals and Savion Williams, 2 wide receivers that I'm a little bit higher on than consensus, I would say, especially Savion Williams. I don't hear a lot of people talking about Williams here from TCU. These are two receivers that I really, really, really like, and potentially could move up draft boards a little bit just in the NFL draft, and that's going to move them up the Dynasty rookie drafts. Now, once again, do I think these guys should be going over some of the other running backs that are out here still? Probably not. You're probably better off taking running backs here, and there's still a lot of good running backs here. Devin Neal, Nicholas Singleton, Giddens, from Kansas State, Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. There's still a lot of guys. Rocket Sanders from South Carolina. Like, there's still a lot of guys, man, that are out there that you could probably take. So, but I wanted to do this without landing spots, just for people that are going to be drafting before the NFL draft comes, doing your dynasty rookie draft before the NFL draft, and also just to give you a feel of like where I think roughly the top 24 guys are right now. So appreciate everyone watching. Help us get to 900 subscribers, 10 away at the time of recording. Appreciate you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Dynasty content, and we'll see you all in the next video.